All right, we are back with another pick'em video. It's going to be a totally different type of video. It's going to be like raw, me going through Props Madness and trying to find plays on the go. I'm not in my normal setup here. I couldn't get to a video last night. I couldn't get to it throughout the day. This is the first time I'm looking at the board, and it's like 4:20 p.m. On the East Coast. So it's like 3 hours till game time here. So again, not normal video, but I did want to get you guys something, especially considering yesterday where we kind of finally came back to earth. 1-3 day. I really don't think a lot of people had a great day. So let's go over the recap real quick, and then we're going to, raw go through Props Madness, trying to find some plays. So unfortunate here because I did have a couple good reads in terms of the guys I was mainly looking at, but in the video picks, the official video picks was Trae Young. He dominated. I was very focused on the above the break threes being such a tough matchup for him that I kind of put under the rug that it was a good matchup for him in terms of scoring in the pick and roll ball handling aspect of his game. So he dominated. He had 38 points. Bad read there. Kobe White over 23.5 points and assists. He did not have the volume. He wasn't shooting much. He was getting the assists, just couldn't get the points. So maybe, again, a bad read there for me. The one guy that did hit for us was Tyrese Halliburton over his 2.5 three-pointers made. That was an easy cash. He had that very early. He also went over his points. And then Devin Booker was a lean. I'm not really sure why I decided to go to him over guys like Towns, over guys like Fox, even Siakam's under, Pancaro. These are all guys I mentioned in the video. They just weren't official video picks. And, of course, all those guys hit. And for some reason, I went to Devin Booker here. Obi Toppin was another guy I mentioned in the video and didn't get there for us. So, it's definitely a weird time in the NBA, again, with the All-Star break coming in. Our guy's going to be rusty. Our guy's going to be really, ready, set to go. Our guys that were injured before the break, are they going to be playing normal minutes and things like that? It's definitely a weird time, but with that said, over the next few weeks, as people really start getting into the groove of things, I think we're going to see some more consistency, especially from the players on good teams making playoff pushes and things like that. And I think we're going to get some edges with other guys on bad teams, sitting and things like that. So I'm excited for the next few weeks to come, but, over the next few days, maybe even till like Monday or so, it could be a little bit weird still. And I don't think a lot of people had a very good day yesterday. So not brushing over it. We're going to come back to earth. We can have these 1-3 days every once in a while for sure, but going to try to get back on track with tonight's slate. Okay. All right, so let's go into Props Madness here. Again, going to be very raw, and I have not looked at the board. So we got the Knicks and the Cavaliers. I'll start off with Donovan Mitchell. Got a very mediocre matchup in terms of his shot chart, but pick and roll ball handling is always a really, really good thing to go to against this Knicks team. Has he played them yet this year? He has. He went over with 25 points. He also had a pretty good game against the Nets yesterday, so this is a back-to-back spot for them. In back-to-backs, he's been okay, so Donovan Mitchell could be a guy that I might be wanting to look at. Looks like it's 24.5 pretty much everywhere, favoring the over just very slightly. Some books are favoring the under, so kind of an interesting one for Donovan Mitchell. But again, pick and roll ball handling is something that definitely I would like to look into. In terms of good matchups in pick and roll ball handling, again, this is literally dead last, so they stay down on shooters. I'm sure their spot up is very good. Yeah, 5th ranked in terms of spot up, and we can see this hit rate does go up very, very much. So 63% hit rate in teams that he's seeing the bottom 10 in terms of pick and roll ball handling. Bottom 5 is a 75% hit rate. This is definitely a spot that I kind of like Donovan Mitchell. I do want to see with everyone healthy, because they are pretty healthy and ready to go. Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter, I won't put in there just because we don't have a lot of data to go off of. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, 60% hit rate. So that's not a bad play. I think Donovan Mitchell's in a pretty good spot here. I'd like to see his assists too. Looks like he's been hitting it recently, but not the best hit rate for the entire year. And rebounding also kind of hit or miss. So definitely something I'd focus on in terms of his points. That's looking like the best line. Maybe points and assists if you want to do that. Looks like a 73% hit rate. Maybe that's the best way to play this. You look at points and rebounds, PRA. Yeah, I think points and assists might be the move here going up against the New York Knicks. And again, we can kind of see the back-to-back looking not too shabby at all. And then head-to-head, he also went over there. So Donovan Mitchell, right off the bat, kind of the first guy I'm looking into. Not a bad play here. And then in that same breath, Darius Garland, another guy that gets a lot of his points, a majority of his points in the pick and roll ball handling here. 30th ranked. He's had really good success against this Knicks team. He had 34 points on them back in very early in the year, back in October, but he's been better throughout the second half of the year. He's been very, very consistent going over this line other than the past 3 games, but he's been a go-to guy for this team. With everyone playing, with Donovan Mitchell, Mobley, and Jared Allen, he's still been pretty consistent. Again, the last 3 games you can point to, but again, pick and roll ball handling, we know this team's weak to them, or to that. They're literally ranked 30th. He's over this in 60% of games, including, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 7 games. And then also the last thing I'd point to is back-to-backs. He's very, very consistent as well. So Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, both really, really good looks. Maybe play them in separate slips, or if you'd like one or the other better, they're definitely good spots to go over today. This should be a close game too. 8.5-point spread. I guess it's not as close as what they're expecting, but should be a good one. These are both, top teams in the East. And I don't want to totally skip over the injury report, but I'm not going to go too in depth. The couple main things I want to point out here is a couple teams are on a back-to-back, so just keep that in mind. Teams that are on a back-to-back. There's a bunch of them. Knicks, Cavs, Orlando played yesterday. Memphis played yesterday. A lot of teams playing. Both these, or the Milwaukee Bucks played yesterday. A bunch of teams that are playing are on back-to-back, so just keep that in mind. So a couple guys that I want to point out are the fact that Damian Lillard and Bobby Portis are going to be out for this Milwaukee team. This is also potentially a Kyle Kuzma revenge team here, and he could get definitely a big boost in terms of his usage. You can see Kyle Kuzma is expected to play 38 minutes in this game, going up against a really weak defense on a team that he used to play for. Could be a really good spot for Kyle Kuzma. I'll definitely look at him in a second here. Another thing I want to point out here, in terms of injuries, nothing too crazy. On these other teams, obviously every center pretty much is injured for the Dallas Mavericks, potentially no PJ Washington as well. Going into these other teams, everyone's pretty healthy for these. We know Jaden Ivey's been out for a while. Minnesota still without Randall and DiVincenzo. Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards. Not going to look at that team just yet. But one thing I wanted to point out here is that Houston, you're not going to see Jabari Smith Jr. on the injury report anymore. Fred VanVleet is still out. But in terms of projected minutes, you can see Jabari projected for 27 minutes in his return. Again, this is their first game back from the All-Star break. He's missed a whole bunch of time, but he could have been ready to go, over the past few days. You can also see a lot of these guys' minutes are dropping a decent amount. Dylan Brooks is still around 32. Aaron Holiday projected to start, but not get a ton of time. Torrey Eason, 25 minutes off the bench. Amin Thompson, we usually get like 40 minutes, so his is lower as well. So Jabari Smith Jr. back for this Houston Rockets team could potentially cut into some other guys' usage rates. And then OKC and Utah, looks like Colin Sexton going to be out in this one. This is a 15.5-point spread. Could be some blowout potential in there. And then Kuminga still out for the Golden State Warriors, and Sacramento Kings are healthy. So injury report, definitely look at the teams on a back-to-back because there's a whole bunch of them. Jabari Smith Jr. being back. Kyle Kuzma against his old team in the Washington Wizards, especially with Lillard and Bobby Portis out, could also be an angle here. And then looking at the other side here for the New York Knicks, they're still without Josh Hart. Rebounds is definitely something I'd want to look at for some guys. OG Anunoby potentially not playing for this team either. Towns is someone, obviously, you got to take a look at. He's been dominating lately. He's also really, really good in back sets, which are on tonight. He's been very, very consistent in going over this line. It's not the best matchup in the world for him, but you can see similar players to him, guys that like to step out and shoot the three, but also do some damage down low in the paint, have had really good success against this Cavs team. By position, it's been a little bit more hit or miss, but still pretty consistent for big man scoring on this team. So this is something I potentially want to look at if you want to go to a guy to score the ball. I think I like Towns here. And then the other thing I'm going to look at is maybe his rebounding. The only thing is, by the way, head-to-head, he did not play very well. This was back on October 23rd, though, or 28th, so very, very early in the season. He played 32 minutes. He only scored 13 points in that game. They lost by 6. I'm not sure who scored in that game because Brunson also didn't have a very good scoring game. He had 21 points. His line's all the way at 27.5. It's also a very difficult matchup for him as well. So I'd probably lean towards Towns just because of his recent form, not because of what he did last time against them, but that was so long ago. Back-to-back sets I like to see, and then also in games without Josh Hart, he scored really well, 32 points in both those games, and you can see the rebounding has been ridiculous, 20 and 18 rebounds. But with that said, this is obviously a tough team to get rebounds on. They're ranked 13th, so not the toughest in the world, but you can see similar players to him haven't been really hitting their line. Mikal Bridges is someone that kind of interests me in that rebounds line. Looks like it's at 3.5. He doesn't hit this very often at all, but it's slightly favored on the over here, so I think you could probably get some decent value, maybe minus 123 over on Sportsbet, or FanDuel's got a minus 125, or even on like a DFS platform like PrizePicks or something if you want to throw it into a 5-man to get that nice positive EV. He's a guy that's also rebounded extremely well without Josh Hart. Because Josh Hart got so many rebounds, Towns is boxing out or whatever it might be, someone's got to go in there and get that. It looks like Mikal's that guy, especially if OG sits in this one. I like this, and he also, we know, hasn't gone over it very much this season, but back in the beginning of the year, he had 6 rebounds against his team. So kind of a scary one just because the hit rate's so bad for the entire year, but Mikal Bridges' rebounds could be a good look. maybe Towns in terms of scoring. Everyone else, I'm not too confident on for the Knicks, but hopefully this game's close, and that might be the way that I would play that. Mikal over his rebounds at 3.5. Maybe look at Towns in terms of his points. Move along to another play that I like. I talked about Kyle Kuzma in a revenge spot. His line's at 20.5 in a lot of books. I think you can probably find it at 19.5 a lot of different places. He's just way too inconsistent for me. This is a revenge game, but similar types of players don't go over against the Wizards very often. It's a great matchup for pretty much anyone. He didn't get there with the injuries against the Clippers, but that was a totally different matchup. You could totally go to Kyle Kuzma. I'm just not going to trust him in this spot, even though it's a revenge game. If this wasn't a revenge game for him, which I do kind of read into sometimes, with all those injuries, I think you have to kind of at least glance at it. But if this was not a revenge game, if he wasn't playing his old team, this wouldn't be something I look at all just because he has not been consistent. Giannis is dealing with that injury. He just came back. He only played 24 minutes last game. He was dealing with foul trouble, but obviously coming back from an injury. Now he's on a back-to-back. It's hard to get to a guy like Giannis. His lines are pretty low considering this matchup. Could be one that he absolutely dominates. He plays really well against this team too. 42 against him last time they played. So obviously, if you're looking at Giannis, I'm just a little bit scared of his minutes. But Brook Lopez is going to be the guy that I land on. You can find this at 13.5 in a lot of different places. It is 12.5 too, so that's probably where I'm going to look at it. PrizePicks has it as a 12.5, and he's been playing pretty consistent. Just dropped 22 against the Clippers yesterday. That was a pretty good spot for him. In terms of back-to-backs, he's been okay, over 50%. But again, Damian Lillard's going to be out of this game. You can see he's over this in 62% of games without Damian Lillard, and also his field goals attempted jumped from 9.7 to 10.9, so he's getting over a shot more on average in those games. 10.9, almost 11 field goals attempted without Damian Lillard. I'll point that out in a second here. Also without Bobby Portis in this one, 57% of games he's been over that, so I do like to see a nice over 50% of both those. And then in one game without both of them, he had 29 points in a much more difficult matchup against the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, definitely someone I'm considering. He's got a great matchup, pick and roll big man, above the break threes, inside, spot up, whatever you kind of look at it. Obviously, this Wizards team's horrible on defense. But then the last thing I want to point out is that field goals attempted line. I'm not going to say he's going to shoot 22 times, but I think 16 on a higher end is definitely a good realm. And then he averages 11 without Damian Lillard in the lineup, over an 82% of games. So I think the angle here against the Wizards would be Brook Lopez, who's been pretty good for him. And I think you get some more usage, some more shots up, and hit this line for us. So over 12.5 points for Brook Lopez if he plays at 13.5. I don't mind that either. He's played these guys twice already this season. Went over in both those games. There were some injuries, but good to see he has success against this team. It's the Wizards. They're horrible on defense. Similar types of players, more 50-50, but with all the injuries, I think Brook should get the more time, more usage, more shots, and I think he's in a good spot here. And then I do want to mention Jordan Poole here, and it's the last game I'm going to mention in the earlier slot because these games are starting in like 2 hours. But Jordan Poole, definitely in a good spot to score the ball. It's at 22.5. He's not very consistent at hitting this over in the last 29 games and only 37.9% of those, but he's a guy that does not play well when he's on a back-to-back, and we don't have to worry about that. He has literally never hit this in back-to-backs. He's got plenty of rest to deal with here. He's coming off the All-Star break, hasn't played since February 12th where he had 42 points, and he's got a great matchup here. Transition, pick-and-roll ball handling, his main two ways of scoring. They're both in the bottom third, this Milwaukee defense is, and they're missing a few guys. This is only a 6-point spread, too, so that's something I'm interested in because potentially could stay a little bit closer with all the injuries to the Bucks. And if it does, that bodes well for our Brook Lopez play, but also Jordan Poole here. He's played really well against these guys in both games, 31 and 26. If you want to get a little bit better of a hit rate, you could also look at the games he's playing or when he's shooting threes because the hit rate on the threes looks a whole lot better. He did only went to 1-1 in terms of 3-point line. He did score 31 points on 3 threes the last time they played. So if I can find his points, he went over in both these games in terms of his points, but the threes is a little bit worse. But at the same time, again, the hit rate looks a little bit better for the threes. So I think Poole's in a good spot to knock down some threes, get a whole lot of shots. It's a good matchup for him. He's going to be going up against his old teammate Kyle Kuzma, so maybe a little bit of extra oomph there. And yeah, not my favorite guy to go to in the world, but I got to point out he's got a good matchup here. And coming off a whole lot of rest, maybe is a little bit better time to go to Jordan Poole. Similar types of players also very consistently going over against this Bucks team. 67% of games they're looking like similar types of players going over, including Poole himself, where he did that in November and December. So not my favorite guy to go to, but I wanted to point out Jordan Poole here. Then moving along to a little bit of a later game, 8:30 time for the Pistons and the Spurs. Obviously, Wembanyama going out with that blood clot. You got to prayers up for that guy because hopefully he's going to be the face of the league moving forward. So, pray kind of on his long-term health there. Horrible news. It was sad to hear about. But, long story short, we got to continue to move on and keep getting these reads. And the Spurs are going to be a little bit harder to read. For Fox, he's a guy I want to go to, but his points line has just been super, low. He's not been hitting this consistently. We did go to him against the Phoenix Suns, and he got there, but he hasn't been amazing on back-to-back. So this team for the Spurs is going to be a little bit harder to read as we get a little bit more data with the Spurs without Wemby. But on the other side of the court, I do like some spots for some guys to score the ball going up against this team. The Spurs aren't a back-to-back. We just saw a bunch of guys hit a whole bunch of threes against the Spurs defense. They ranked 29th in terms of above-the-break threes, so Cade being pick-and-roll ball handling dominant, 23rd in that regard. This would be something I'd want to look into. Taking out those top 10 teams. Looks like still a 51% hit rate. In terms of his assists, 55% hit rate. In terms of his rebounds, 65% hit rate. Maybe you can find a better combo line. It's just going to be hard for me to get to Cade. I think he could have a good game. Malik Beasley's another guy I really want to look at. 14.5 points. Seems really low, but I think they're going to get Dennis Schroeder kind of getting things going in terms of the lineup. We did see him score 14 points. Has he played with Dennis Schroeder yet? If we add Schroeder, he's had 3 games with him. He's been over in a few of those games, 26, 16, and 23 minutes. So even with the lower minutes, he's been able to get there. This would be the guy I'd want to go to. The thing that scares me is he's only projected for 23 minutes. And when you drop his minutes to like 20 to 26 minutes or say, let's say for the entire year, the hit rate looks horrible. So 20 to 26 minutes, it's not going to look as good. 41% hit rate, but he does have an amazing matchup here, 56% in terms of his shots above the break threes that ranked 29th there. So this is someone I definitely want to get to. I'm just a little bit scared on his minutes, but if he's knocking down shots, they're going to keep him on the floor. This is a -4 spread for favorite Detroit. Detroit is at away, I think. Yeah, they're away, so does that hurt him a decent amount? No, he plays pretty well in the away games. I really want to get to Malik Beasley. The minutes are scaring me a little bit. But if you look at teams that are ranking in terms of above the break threes that are poor, 20th to 30th, the bottom third teams, he's over this in 75% of games. But again, the minutes here are scaring me. 18 minutes in this one, he didn't get there. 20 minutes in this one, he didn't get there. 26 minutes in that one, 23 minutes in that one. So all those misses are the games that he's getting a little bit less minutes. But with all that said, Malik Beasley at 14.5 points, definitely someone that intrigues me. You could also just look at his threes because, he's a guy that likes to jack up threes. Favored on the under, it looks like, in a lot of books. So you could get some decent value on that. But again, just looking at the minutes, 20 to 26 minutes. He's projected for 23 right now. The hit rate's still just too low for me. So, I think I like Malik Beasley. Scared about the minutes, but if you can knock down stuff early, I do like his potential in this one for his threes, maybe his points line as well. Moving along to the next play that I really like, I kind of brushed over this Pelicans and Mavericks game because there's a ton of injuries. This Thunder and Jazz game, huge point total, 15.5 point spread for this game, so it could be a blowout. We know the Thunder like to blow out teams. Very, very difficult matchup for guards. We know that. But they've been hitting their lines pretty consistently in terms of their points, in terms of their assists, especially guys like Collier, especially guys like Keontae George. Both these guys kind of going over a decent amount. Now, we haven't seen them play a whole bunch against this Thunder team, especially Collier. He hasn't got a ton of time against this team, especially in like the assist department, scoring department. I'm not going to take into account games he's only playing 23 and 14 minutes. But with this blowout situation, could be a good spot to look at some unders for some Jazz, especially some Jazz guards. But I'm going to move into this next game because I think there's a spot for some Wolves players going up against this Houston Rockets team. First guy I always look at, because Julius Randle's out of lineup still, is going to be Naz Reid. Now, I don't like his scoring potential in this one because it's a very difficult matchup. He played this team without Julius Randle already a few weeks ago, and he had 15 points. But what I do like is he assisted the ball well, he rebounded the ball well, but the rebounds and assist line I don't love as much. I'm just going to go to his rebounds here. I think this is definitely a good spot. Now, it's not the one I love the best in this one. It's actually going to be Jaden McDaniels for that, but there's a whole bunch of potential injuries for this team. Anthony Edwards, a game-time decision. DiVincenzo and Randall already out, and the Rudy Gobert also a game-time decision. This is a 3.5 point spread, so it's saying it's supposed to stay close here. I think this is a good spot for Naz Reid to grab some rebounds. He's projected for 32 minutes as of right now, but then not looking at the head-to-head without Julius Randle, he's over this in 62% of games. This is someone we've gone to in the past, so definitely a guy that I think is in a good spot to rebound the ball. Now, in terms of his minutes projected, projected for 32 minutes. So if you want to bump this up to 30 plus minutes, over in 61% of games. But if you go like 30 to 35 minutes, it's only a 50% hit rate. The guy I'm really, really focusing on is going to be Jaden McDaniels. I don't want to say Naz Reid's not a good play. I think he is a good play. But Jaden McDaniels is in a really good spot. Specifically, his rebounds and assist line at 8.5. He's been very, very consistent on this. Again, the games without Julius Randle, he's over this in 87% of those games. So something off the bat that I'm really, really liking. He's been rebounding the ball well. He's been assisting the ball well. And he's played this Rockets team right here. He had 12 rebounds and assists against this Rockets team without Randall already in the lineup. So we have a data point to look at that he already hit this in. And again, projected for, I think, 27 minutes in this one. We can see that right here, the Timberwolves projected for, that's Nickeil Alexander-Walker, projected for, 37 minutes. That's what I meant to say, 37 minutes in this one. So whole bunch of time. If he's going to get 37 minutes, a guy that always gets a lot of minutes, but if he's going to get 35 plus minutes, he's over this in 61% of games. And again, Julius Randle being out is the main thing here. So I think a spot to do for Jaden McDaniels is going to be his 8.5 rebounds and assists. Looks like it's pretty much available everywhere. Not too favored on the over, not too favored on the under, so kind of a 50-50 line in terms of the books. But yeah, Jaden McDaniels over his 8.5 rebounds and assists. That's been a wagon for us. We've gone to it in the past. I think it's a good spot for him here too. Then moving along to this late game, the 10 o'clock game against the Warriors and the Kings. I'm liking two plays in this one. First one is going to be Steph Curry. Now, you could look at his points. I think he's in a good spot here. You can see similar players to Steph scoring very, very well against this Kings team, but 28th in terms of above the break threes. That's what I'm going to be focusing on for Steph Curry, because the hit rate on his threes is much better than hit rate on his points. If he's going to get 4 or 5 or more threes, he usually hits his points line, so that's always the way that I go here. And with Jimmy Butler in the lineup and Draymond Green, he's been shooting a whole bunch of threes, getting open looks, and he's been knocking them down. As you can see, the hit rate here looking really, really good. Now, he's played this team twice. He scored pretty well in one game. He didn't score very well in the other game, but I'm going to look at games so far with Jimmy Butler in the lineup, and you can see he's over that in 3 of 4 games, over this 4.5 3-point line. Just to clarify, that's the line that I'm liking here, but I also like his attempts here. 16, 16, 13, and 13 from the 3-point line. Whenever he's getting that much volume, this hit rate looks really, really good. In terms of three-pointers attempted, we'll do, let's say, 12 to 18 three-pointers attempted. Over this in 63% of games. Now, again, you could go to his points line, but that's a 50% hit rate in terms of similar types of, he's jacking up these threes. But if he's going to get 12 to 18 three-pointers up, the best shooter in the world, I like the chances of him making 5 of them. And again, really, really good matchup to launch some threes from the three-point line. And very similar players to him have had really good success against this Kings team. So loving Steph to make 5 threes. It's not something you go to on many players, but Steph Curry will be the one to do it. They are coming off a big break, but we saw Steph do that in the All-Star game. Half-court shot, one-legged runner from three-point land. He's the best shooter we've ever seen. 4.5 threes. This is a perfect matchup for him to do it, and I think he's going to have the extra volume with Draymond and Jimmy Butler getting those, pick-and-roll handoffs to him, or just finding him open from the three-point line. So I'm liking Steph Curry here, and then the other side of the court, really liking DeMar DeRozan. Obviously, the trade happened. No De'Aaron Fox in this one. But you can see similar types of players. 64% of games they've gone over this. It's because they're very weak in that mid-range spot. They allow a whole lot of shots there. They defend the rim really well. They defend the three really well. That should be a recipe for a great defense. But that mid-range, which people live, they'll live with someone shooting a mid-range shot over a three or at the rim. But DeMar cooks there. 28th ranked in terms of defense there. And we can see in those similar types of matchups, let's say bottom third of the league, he's over this in 80% of those games. So really, really liking DeMar here. If he was away, I'd like it a little bit better just because he is so good away games. Pick and roll ball handling, they are pretty good against. But even so, if you want to go to his dominant scoring type, DPT, even taking away the bottom 15 teams in the league, he's still over this in 2 of those 3 games. So I'm liking his chances here. He went over once in one of the games. He had 32 points. He went under once, but I'm thinking DeMar is going to be the guy. He shoots a whole bunch of shots. I think he'll be able to eat in the mid-range. So 2 plays from this one, DeMar over his points. You can get this at 19.5 on DraftKings too. Want to point that out. So over 19.5 points, and then Steph Curry over his 4.5 threes. All right, so that's going to do it for this one. Again, totally late video, but better late than never, I do like to say. Not going to be a whole lot of traction on this video, of course, but 1-3 day yesterday. Hopefully bounce back spot here. And I wish I could have looked at the board earlier because I'm actually liking a whole lot of spots. Now, in terms of the plays we looked at, Brook Lopez over 12.5 points. Really, really liking that one. Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, I bet one of those two at least go over their points lines against this Knicks team. I like them both. If you want to go to Donovan Mitchell, 29.5 points and assists, that's the way I'd play it. If you want to go to Darius Garland, I'd just go to his points. I wouldn't play him in the same slip, but I do like both those guys. Jaden McDaniels over 8.5 rebounds and assists without Julius Randle and a whole lot of minutes. This is a really good spot for him, and he already did this against this Rockets team. Steph Curry over 4.5 three-pointers made, and then DeMar DeRozan over 19.5 points. Those are the plays I'm going to be giving you guys today. We talked about a whole bunch of leans in this one too. For those of you that see this one, not going to be a whole lot of you, but hopefully you got something from it. I know a couple people are waiting. I've been getting comments about it. Wasn't going to do video because I couldn't get to it earlier in the day, but I thought, why not? An hour and a half before a game start, I'll throw something out there. And a couple of these games are much later, so you do have a time to take advantage of some of those other plays. So good luck with all your bets, like always. If you're new around here, this isn't the normal time we get the videos out, but go ahead and subscribe because we've been killing it. Leave the video a like, comment something down below, all those good things, and then check out the description of the video if you want to get access to an awesome Discord community, if you want to get access to all my plays, but also, again, a bunch of other people's plays that are always sharing slips, bouncing ideas off each other. It's a really good time. And then Props Madness is the tool that I was using. There's a link in the description down below if you want to get 25% off your first month or your first year, and you also get a free week trial when doing that. So I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be hopefully a normal time. I apologize for that, but good luck with all your bets. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.